So for those of you who are not familiar with banking, this is what we have at Barclays, and what we do to sell our area of banking, to be completely honest with you, is we have what we call 8 career pathways, which are up on this screen now. And actually that's not the complexity of what we recruit into. We're recruiting into a myriad of positions under these banners, but as I've just explained, to the outside world they're completely meaningless. If you don't work in banking, or don't know someone who worked in banking, actually, where do I want to work? Where does my skill set lie? Which one do I apply for? And as much as I kid myself that they read everything on the website and they know that, actually they don't. So the only way I can bring across the insight is through these pathways and my immersive assessment. And the most important thing to say is, banks are not banks anymore, they're technology businesses. So whichever pathway you're coming into, despite the one that just says technology, you might think you're doing technology in that one. Actually, you're not. You're doing an element of technology in any of these areas. Whichever area you come into, they've got a multitude of pathways. So how am I going to assess these different pathways against these different levels? So you've got what we call our spring interns, which are vitally important to us because they're our pipeline of talent to bring in then our internship numbers. So they come in and spend a week with us in a placement integrated into our business. And our hope is they have an insight into what area it is, talk eloquently about it when they go back on campus. And we also give them an offer to come through to an internship, which if they're successful on their internship, comes through to a graduate programme. Then you've got our internship where you have a 9-week immersive experience. And in Barclays, not only do they just come in and do the internship, they're given a development piece. So the first week is spent learning, being upskilled, as it were, into the different areas, and it's an introduction to the business. And they have proper mentoring, a buddy system, and we check in with them every few weeks with their line managers to make sure they're having the right experience. And then our graduate programme is a 2 to 3 year development programme. Most of our programmes are 2 years, where again, they're brought in and have development all the way through. So it's continual learning is how we do it. They're brought in at first and they have about a 3-week immersion period of training, and then they have continual learning in bite-sized portions across relevant to the pathway that they've come through. Our foundation apprenticeships, I'm sure many of you are moving into the apprenticeship market, which is a huge area for us. You come in and you do a 2-year foundation programme and you have the mix of on-the-job and studying. And then our higher degree apprenticeships has been very exciting for us. We're working with Warwick University and Glasgow University, where you come in and you're literally taught to code and get a degree on it, and it's a 3 to 4 year programme working towards that professional qualification. So despite all those different entry routes, all the different pathways, it comes down to some core skills. Do you fit into our culture? Can you deal with ambiguity? And do you have a passion for technology? Because it doesn't matter which area you come into or which area you're going into, those are the skills you need. And that's why Barclays had an immersive assessment that brings that to life. So what we do is we want as an open playing field as we can. It's all about people's potential. We're not trying to screen anyone out. So you apply online. We don't have entry requirements. There's no CV. The only area where we do have an entry requirement is on our higher apprenticeships, which you do have A-level grades that have to be done, but that's not actually from Barclays. That's because of the degrees that we've then joined with, who have put that into their stipulations. So you come in, and then you do what we call an online business simulation. So what this is bringing to life a story which is relevant across Barclays. So this for us is based on an app, for example, of how you would do that. Now some of you, it's called online business simulation. Some of you might know this as some people call it a job simulation. It's kind of giving you a real insight into a story that is immersive and goes through. And what you're asked to do is, as you're given more and more information in the story, and this can be done slightly as video, it can be flat, it can be text, this is entirely up to you how you do it, but what will be resonating and make it actually relevant to your business. And then the candidate assesses and ranks orders what they would do. So they're given a variety of scenarios, and then they rank order what they feel would be the most important. And it's from that you're understanding, do they fit to your culture? Do they have the potential? Do they see things in a certain way? From a Barclays perspective, a lot of this is, would you make the right decision from a compliance perspective? So that ranking might make a difference. I've worked in another organisation where we're ranking it is, would you make the right decision in an extremely stressful situation? So you'll really immerse them in that sort of thing, and you just see what's their decision-making process as to how to do it, and that's what you're assessing against. You then move into what we call the business simulation 2. So everyone who's applied at Barclays gets the chance to do the business insights. And why that's really important is back to what Nikki said. It allows you, first of all, anyone who's interested in your company has now had the chance to have an immersive experience. You've had the chance to sell to them. And even if they're unfortunate and not successful, they've received some feedback, they're more knowledgeable on you, and it's really important in this marketplace where talent is really hard fought for. They might come back, they might not come back to you now, but they might come back to you in 5 years' time. A talk I recently went to said that the next generation will have 38 jobs in their career. And we shouldn't be looking about retention all the time, because that's not realistic. In this era, people don't want to stay, they want to move on. So what your strategy should be is at least they could boomerang back to you in that 38 job career 4 times, and then you're a successful business. So you really can't discount how important getting as many people to come through that first stage is. Then if you're successful and you reach the benchmark, which again really depends on the pathway, so we don't have set ones, it depends what works for your business. And that would be my biggest learning. Back to the point that Nikki said at the beginning, this is all based, the simulation and what strengths you're looking for, on the original success analysis. And what's vitally important is, who did you ask to be part of that success analysis? So you should be doing it on people on the job, but you should also include your visionaries about where their business is going. And I cannot stress enough, choosing who those visionaries are can make a complete difference to the success analysis that comes out, and from that, what assessment you put in. It's really important that people are thinking about the future of what you want these people to come in. Because while you give them the reality of now, because we only know now, we're assessing potential with, can they deal with the ambiguity of what's going to come in 6, 7 years' time if you are recruiting to get people through and be your successors of the future. So when you get to the business insight stage 2, this is so immersive. It's literally, for us, we take the same story and bring it all the way through. I have worked in another organisation where we've merged these pieces together, and it's one set assessment. So there isn't a right or wrong, it's about your business. It's about the funnels you're trying to take. It's trying to get what you want to get out of it. So on the second piece, when you come through to the business insight 2, you're watching real scenarios. You're in the business meeting, you're given text, you're asked to reply to an email in a set finite period of time, which is really important because that's what the working world's like. You're not given lots of information. You have to deal with the information you're given and make a decision in a set time. You're asked to think about, what would you prioritise? You're given various scenarios. You watch a video, and you're in the video itself, that you're in a meeting, so it gives a real realistic, does this feel right to you? Do you feel comfortable in this scenario? And there might be candidates that do well, but don't really like that, in which case this is a really good experience for them to know, is this the right fit for them? So once they finish that, they then come through to our final assessment. So the final assessment, again, has to work to your pathway of what works for you. So what we've done in Barclays is the scenario that this is all based on is then taken to the assessment centre. Each stage is building on the same scenario, so everybody's very clear about what the scenario was, what we're looking for. And then we do the various assessments. So depending on which business area, this can be a simulated business meeting. They obviously have a final interview, and depending on some of them, they literally get a case study, and then they have to answer that case study and how they would go about it. And in other areas, we've got virtual reality. which again is really immersing them into a set scenario of how you do virtual reality. Having sat on your side of the room, I'm sure you're all sitting there and saying, actually, but what does this cost? Can I afford this? So that's my first tip. You can, no matter what your budget is. It's all about which elements are important and how does it work for you. And it's taking that time to actually think, what is the most important element? It's about immersive and bringing your organisation to life. And you can do that whether you go for the full immersive piece, like Nikki's shown you, but there are elements, if you can't do that, that you can make work really, really well with a strengths-based video assessment. The second thing is consistency. You cannot underestimate the amount of work and thinking about how you're going to score and evaluate this. And you have to be really clear, what is the objective you want to get out? What is the most important thing? Do not forget that success analysis about what rated the highest strengths, and keep remembering, are you keeping that in mind? Because as you go in the journey, you sometimes forget that and you get very excited about a question or an amazing video that you managed to implement. But is that the killer one? Is that the one making the difference? And the next thing is, when you put in these big processes and you digitalise everything, it's who is assessing it and why is it consistent? And we're all in different structures, so it's not always easy to provide that consistency, but really think about that. So in one organisation I've worked with, only 3 of us could assess that video. Now that seems amazing when it was 3,500 videos, but that was the process I put in place, and that was because we were completely and utterly consistent, because only one person could overrule, which was myself, and the other 2 assessed. And then we knew, we all agreed what was a pass, what was a fail, what was in the middle, and we were never making changes. You might not be structured to do that, in which case you're fortunate enough you can ask CAP to do your assessments, which is where I am now at Barclays. But again, they have a team of assessors where we're ensuring that consistency across, and that's so important to what you do. Just really testing the questions, and is it giving you the result that you want to test? So there is quite a lot of work that you want to do on how are you scoring things. So your scoring documents and how you use those scoring documents are very, very important. And often when you put in these processes, they're the last thing that everybody sort of looks at and starts to test. But it's really important that you make the scoring and the assessing much, much easier. And then I just want to touch on virtual reality, because that for me was a complete game changer, and it was absolutely, for me, in my assessments, made the complete difference. The rest of my process literally all came down to that virtual assessment, how differentiating it was between someone who could cope in the role I was doing and couldn't. And it's because it was so immersive and brought to life what they're doing and putting them in quite a stressful situation, which was relevant to the job I wanted them to do.